Okay. And if you're on the right shows and you have the right topic, you should start to see opt-ins and leads within 2 weeks. You are listening to Amplify Your Success Podcast, episode 372. And today I'm going to share with you my technique to rapidly build authority so you stand out in a crowded market. You ready for this? Let's get started. Welcome to the Amplify Your Success Podcast. Get ready to ramp up your revenue, amplify your impact, and make your mark in the world. This is the show for experts, thought leaders, and service professionals who want to shatter their limits and achieve that next level. You're going to find out from other experts and influencers how they made it. Now, let's get amplified. Hey there, inspired entrepreneurs and business leaders. It is your host, Melanie Benson, Authority Amplifier for expert-based entrepreneurs ready to take their business to 5- and 6-figure consistent cash flow months. And today I'm going to talk about something that it was actually inspired by a conversation that came out of the 100K Authority Accelerator, and just seeing a whole bunch of stuff being posted on social media. And I thought, okay, we need to talk about authority building. And typically it comes up because people are complaining that they're doing the right things, but they're not getting the results they want. They're being visible, they're putting content out, they are, they're paying a lot of money to get booked by a booking service to get on podcasts, and it's not getting monetized, or they're just not getting the bookings, and they're not getting the clients. So I want to share something. I honestly stumbled onto this when I was rebooting my brand, and I had pivoted my brand a bit after the first decade in business. I felt like a best kept secret. I had worked so hard to get my business up into the $1 million range, and then it literally just was like crickets. And I was like, what is happening? And so I went back to the basics, and of course was able to incorporate some of the really wonderful tools we have now with social media and podcasting to replicate something that I learned back in 2002, 2003 that really got me on the map. And so I called it the Authority Building Trifecta. What it does is it just speeds up you standing out in a crowded market. And this is what got me into $1 million visibility. This is what drove my business from nothing, struggling to keep $1,000 a month coming in, to having a very high 6-figure and then cresting into 7 figures with my business. And it's the same thing I've done over and over and over again every time I want to ramp things up. And where I see some of the opportunity is to flip the script from spending an enormous amount of time pitching and trying to get yourself in the right place so that you get the invitations, to these invitations coming very easily because you are the authority. And it's almost like you turn the faucet on, and maybe a little too much sometimes. And the high class problem of you've really just got to vet out the opportunities and decide what is aligned for you. So I'll unpack this in a minute, but a lot of people have been asking me about this $1 million visibility. What does that mean? How does it work? And so $1 million visibility, especially if you caught the last solo episode we did here, I'll link it up in the show notes. $1 million visibility is being able to stand out and be the recognized authority so that the visibility that you do, whether that's speaking in live events, it's having very full, high profile list of podcasts that you're speaking on or doing interviews on. It's having collaborations and joint ventures, summits, whatever you want to call it, constantly generating high quality premium client leads and sales. And $1 million visibility is the monetization of the effort that goes into the visibility. Look, visibility alone is not going to pay the bills. It's learning how to monetize that visibility that just is going to be that bold growth leap, that next level success that so many of us are ready for, but the pieces of the puzzle aren't coming together, right? So I unpacked the whole $1 million visibility framework and the pieces that need to be in place for this to work right and to really become a quite easy system that gets you in front of the right audiences with the right message so that you're getting those right clients. If you go to amplifywithmelanie.com, you will be able to download that. It's my gift to you, and watch for the training that comes along with it. So amplifywithmelanie.com, or just look for the link in the show notes. Let's talk about authority for a minute. Because sometimes I've heard from people, well, I don't know, do I need to be an authority? Does that really help me? It does. It absolutely does. And I want you to think about this not from your uncomfortableness with a label, so to speak, but more from the perspective of a potential client or somebody who is looking for a speaker or a guest on their show. And more, what's happening is the market is saturated. There's a lot of people that sound the same. There's a lot of people that say they can do things that have very little experience and are misaligning themselves with results that they can't stand behind. And so one of the things that will help accelerate aligned clients into your bank account, into your business, into the work that you do in the world is to be able to showcase your authority. And so I always say that authority is in the eyes and the ears of the beholder, and whoever's looking to fill the thing that they need, if they understand you're an authority, it gives you a competitive advantage. It gives you the advantage of being recognized for your authority. And so everything starts with you being known for something. And this is one of my specialty areas, is helping thought leaders and experts who maybe have a lot of things they can do well and a lot of things they're known for and a lot of maybe superpowers and talents. And maybe it's kind of all gotten a little jumbled up, or you're pivoting and you're recognizing that the evolution of your work needs a new umbrella or a new brand to stand behind. And so that first pillar really, or that I should say the cornerstone of this working has to be you are known as a recognized authority, as an expert. And this has to tie back to your superpower and what you do really well so that you do stand out. And if you don't know what that is, we definitely need to talk, because the more you're able to articulate this and position this and create all of your authority positioning around this, the faster the whole trifecta system works. So let's just assume that you are known for something. You know what that is. You have the clarity. And now I want to teach you this 3-step pillar. And I want you to imagine that this is actually arrows that make a big circle. So each arrow points to the next arrow, and there's a big circle. And in the middle of the circle is your ideal business. It's the business where you're making a great impact. It's the business where you are making good money, doing what you love to do, serving clients that absolutely benefit, and the work you're doing with them just lights your soul on fire, right? So that's the ideal outcome. How do we get to them? How do they know it's us they should be working with, and they are going to get the best results from you? Well, it starts with pillar number 1, and that is being highly visible with what I call authority content. And this, I could probably do a whole episode just on this, and it's actually become one of the signature steps that I teach in 100K Authority Accelerator, because this one thing can make or break monetizing your visibility. So authority content is content that is designed to showcase why you are an expert and why you are uniquely talented to do the work you do for the ideal clients you want to serve. And authority content can take a lot of different forms. Where I will tell you there's a massive distinction is between teaching content in a way that's inspiring and educational and value-driven, and being arrogant and trying to demonstrate you're some kind of badass with influence, right? And we all know, I'm being a little facetious, but we all know those profiles, right? Like those social media accounts that they're just dropping all of this kind of braggadocious stuff. I mean, that's not what I mean by authority content. Authority content is carefully curated and crafted to move people with this compelling, irresistible quality to want to learn more from you. And I will tell you that I didn't know what I was doing wrong in this area until I started doing some specific tests on my Facebook account. And all of a sudden I was like, boom, I now understand what works and what doesn't work. And each social content, I'm talking about social media here. There's a lot of different ways you can build authority content. You can blog, you can do video, you can do any of the things, right? And there are different styles of authority content that will really make your brand shine. But you also have to know what kind of authority you are and what kind of content's really going to showcase you. So let's just go with something really simple where you sprinkle stories that illuminate what you do and the results that you tend to get for your clients. Let's just go with that very simple premise right now. And you also sprinkle in where you are speaking or how you're in real life an authority, like going on a plane to speak, or you're running an event, or you're meeting with a client, right? So you sprinkle that in a little bit. What authority content does, especially when you are consistent with it across your number one primary social media platform, your authority content should be doing three things. One, if you're doing this right, you are getting invitations to be interviewed and to speak. Okay, now there's a whole nother layer to this about who you're connected with on your social platforms that makes this work. But let's just say for the moment that you've done all that right, you are getting invitations to speak. You are getting invitations to be interviewed, right? Collaborations are being opened up because people are seeing, oh, that's what she does. Oh, wow. Okay, that thing that he's talking about right there, I've been looking for somebody to do that for my show or my mastermind, right? So that's number one. Number two is it should reinforce your topic that you speak on or your expertise so that when somebody's going to your platform, they're vetting you because they do that. There's congruence there and they're seeing, oh yeah, that's what they do. And so it should be reinforcing you getting more speaking when you are pitching. I had a client learn this lesson a couple years back. I had audited his whole social presence and all of his assets as we started to work together on his authority building. And one of the things that I said is like your socials are not really congruent. You don't have a authority presence there and they're really small. I said, I think we need to work on building that up before you pay someone to pitch you to be on shows. And you know what happens for so many of us, right? We're impatient. It's like, no, I want to do this now. Or the podcast booker, the service, is excited for you and they talk you into getting going before you're ready. And, he heard a lot of no's because they're like, you don't have the reach. And this is one of the things you can control. So being visible with authority content is one thing, but the ability for someone to see the reach that you have in real time is going to reinforce they want you as an expert. They want you as an authority on their show or on their stage. This is something that I found that also happens is it will speed up your ideal client's decision making when they can see in real time that you have like this repeated presence on social media that's consistent with the results they want, with the authority content that demonstrates you're an expert. Now, this is not my authority content class here. Like, I'm not going to be able to cover all of it, but let me just say one big mistake people make here is they do not recognize the value of consistency in their social media. And so, especially on Facebook, their profile and their positioning does not match what they do. And I guarantee you, people are either vetting you on LinkedIn or they're vetting you on Facebook. And even your personal profile should be dialed in to match what you do if you're really serious about wanting to up-level your authority and up-level your results in business. I know that might be a little bit of a trigger or poke some poke the bear a little bit, but it really does work. I promise you. So that's pillar number one. And we actually spent an entire segment of 100K Authority Accelerator going into that and doing workshop on that because it moves the needle so much. Now, pillar number one is a foundation, right? It's like what's going to get the ball rolling. Pillar number two is getting you out there on other people's platforms with your authority message, with your authority positioning. And being on other people's platforms like stages, podcasts, shows, being, featured in someone's email list, all of that is borrowing credibility and influence from people who've already established their audience, right? They've already established the know, like, and trust factor with people that follow them. So now you're borrowing that. And what that does is and normally it's like you have a complimentary offer, you have a complimentary specialty than the person hosting you. So now you're sharing your message in some way, shape, or form to that audience. And you're going to find that people in that audience are going to go, wow, okay, I need that. Wow, that's really resonating with me. That's something I'm interested in. Okay. And if you're on the right shows and you have the right topic, you should start to see opt-ins and leads within 2 weeks. If you're not, I guarantee you are making one of 17 common mistakes that guest experts make that kind of destroy that whole monetization cycle. And it doesn't mean you're not good at this. It just means you need some fine-tuning and optimization of your overall process. As a matter of fact, I will link up in the show notes my other resource. It's a scorecard called 17 Mistakes. I will link that up for you because you might want to look at that as well if you're finding a hard time monetizing your visibility. Now, here's one of the things. There's so many different choices here, and I know a lot of people are diehard, like I like virtual summits or I like being able to be on stages, and I want that for you too because oftentimes you have more of an audience that's I don't want to say a controlled audience, but it's an audience that's really committed to listening to you for that period of time. And there will be more people in that audience in that given space. And so you might see a fast burst of leads from that. But don't discount the power of podcasts. This is why I've been hot about podcasts since, I don't know, for the last 5-6 years. And I've been speaking all over the world on what can happen with OPP, other people's podcasts or other people's platforms. But podcasts are evergreen. And I want you to think about this for a minute. When you are a guest expert with some really powerful topic you've done your research and you really know what the topic is that's going to light a fire in the hearts and the minds and the fingers of your ideal client, they're going to listen to that podcast and they are going to beeline to pillar number 3 that I'll talk about in a minute. I see this happen all the time, and I get people booking consults with me. I'll ask them, like, how did you hear about me? Just the other day, I was doing a consult with somebody and he said, oh yeah, I heard you on this podcast. And he told me the guy's name. And I thought to myself, I recorded that 2 years ago. And I know it dropped that year or early the first, because I know he recycled some of the elements that we worked on and pulled a couple of episodes out of it. And I thought, yep, it's always working. Podcasts are always being listened to. And a lot of people go back to the beginning or they scroll way back in the podcast because they are available 24/7. People listen when they can listen. And they love the on-demand aspect of it. So that means you're in their ears, you're in front of them with this relevant message at the time when they need it most. So evergreen quality of those leads is super important. So pillar number 1, be visible with authority content. That's what's getting you booked. That's what's getting you to stand out in a crowded market. Number 2, you're boosting that authority by being on other people's platforms and borrowing their influence. Here's pillar number 3. And if you got first 2, this is where the magic happens. You're going to inspire them to consume you and your content on your branded authority platform. And I feel very grateful for this podcast. And I sometimes it's a labor of love, and sometimes I really have to go, do I want to keep doing the show? And then it's moments like this when I say, absolutely. That man I mentioned who heard me speak on someone else's podcast, what did he do? He went and he looked up my podcast because, of course, when I'm introduced as a guest expert, my podcast is also introduced. My podcast is linked up in the bio. So now he's binging my podcast. And this has happened over and over and over again. And he said, yeah, I listened to a couple episodes of your podcast and I knew immediately I wanted to work with you. He's like, I just knew that you would be the person that I wanted to work with. What happened? Authority positioning, reinforcement of my message, teaching things that were relevant to him right now. And this is not the one only, it's not a one-off, right? This has happened over and over and over again. So my favorite way to do pillar number 3 is to have my own podcasts so think about it like this. When somebody hears you speak on someone else's stage, they've warmed up a little bit in the sales language, but they're still really a cold lead. There's no real relationship yet. There's just a spark of interest. But when they get to come into your world and now they're building a relationship with you and you've given them a way to binge you in some way, shape, or form, then the know, like, and trust factor is strengthened. Then the relationship gets stronger. Then the barriers of fear start to go down and the desire to solve the problem with you go up. Now, I use my podcast this way, but there's a lot of ways to do this, and this is where it should come back to your superpower. Mine is the podcast. Some people might be a YouTube channel. Some people might be a video series. Maybe you can, because of course I also want you to have a downloadable resource that is tied directly to your topic. But you want to get them into your email community and you want to nurture them, okay? Because not everybody's a fast action taker and is going to raise their hand immediately. Some people need more time to go, are they the real deal? Do I feel connected to them? Do I believe I can trust them to solve my problem for me? And then you're going to do one of two things. You're either going to nurture this relationship until the right message comes across their path and they go, gosh, I got to do this now. Or they're going to have access to something that I call the sales trigger, which is going to get them to either book a consultation or attend some kind of event that you're hosting and say, yes, I want that from you. And this is the client journey that you've got to master as part of not just having a brand authority platform, but a way to nurture relationships so that the monetization continues to come through. So this is my authority building trifecta. It does work, but you do have to work the process and you have to really focus and commit to it. And it's not a kind of a wing it thing. It's a very strategic thing. You don't have to have your own podcast to be successful in pillar number 3. There are several different things you can do. I find the podcast works the best, but not everybody wants to have a podcast. Not everybody should have a podcast. And so you need to figure out what that is for you. Is it a book? Is it a freebie? Is it a webinar series that you do? Is it a series of videos? There's just a lot of different things you can do in pillar number 3. But if you do know that you want to make it a podcast and you're like, okay, I got to finally do this. And you're thinking, what resource can I possibly access that'll help speed that up? I'll also link up in the show notes my very simple but very powerful Authority Brand Podcast Toolkit. Super inexpensive. And it's a really easy way to get your podcast out of your head and into the market quickly to help with, building this branded authority platform. So 3 pillars: content, authority content, leveraging other people's platforms and really creating those win-win outcomes by borrowing their credibility and authority, and then inspiring them to binge you and become part of your community, part of your ecosystem, and nurture those relationships until that person goes, yep, I'm in, or they're like, nope, I'm out. This is not my person, which is also okay. I'd love to hear if you put this in action. And if you're thinking, okay, I know I need to do this and I don't know how, let me know. Let's talk. Let's book a fast track session and get this figured out for you. Maybe working together this year is the right thing to do. I'm about ready to open up an enrollment for my next 100K Authority Accelerator. And I got to tell you, it's one of the best investments around for the results we get. I'll link up the fast track session in here as well. It's complimentary right now, and that might just be the best way for us to get started. Thanks for tuning in today, Amplifier. Be sure to join us right now in the Amplify Your Authority community at authorityamplifiers.com, and I'll share my 7 proven tips to be a highly paid expert that stands out in a crowded market. Plus, we're going to keep this conversation going, and I want to hear from you how you're going to amplify your authority and make a greater impact. Before you go, please take a minute to give our show and our guests some love over on your favorite podcasting platform. Subscribe, rate, and review. Leave your full name, and I'll spotlight you and your authority on social media.